Okay. Oh yeah, maybe you can you check on your end when you have a moment? See if the audio is okay to you? No hurry at all. Okay. Yeah, so something I've been thinking about for the last few days or so is that I don't need to do much UI work at all currently because, to put it bluntly, you can do just about everything. Excuse me, I'm sorry. You can do just about everything in the actual mono behaviors. Like, you can make buttons that'll cause events or change values or that sort of thing. So that's actually mostly what I'm going to do today. There's a few things that we thought about that are absolutely essential as we move forward. I'm going to need to know what my current weight is, and then maybe a goal weight. Not like physical weight, but the amount of weight you're lifting. Because one of the things that Liz often were like, what was the amount of weight that we did last time? And I don't know how people keep track of this. I'm assuming all the buff boys just lift however much they need to shake the floor, because that seemed to be the thing last time we were there. Yeah, so that's going to be helpful. And so the first thing I need to do, we're going to go into the body for our activities, or specifically our exercises, because we know now that we have a few things to take care of. Eventually, I'm going to need to expand this if I want to market it internationally to support the far more sensible metric system than the American imperial system. So, grams, kilograms, that sort of thing. I think all the weights at our gym actually have both listed on them. I'll have to check the next time we're there, because if they do, I may just use metric myself. But in the meantime, we're gonna have it'll be an integer value. Oh, that's not true, because you can do half pounds on some of the machines. So I guess we'll go with double. Yeah, doubles are rather large numbers that can be fractional decimals, which is great. And we'll just say weight and or current. Yeah, so we can just do weight, and then we'll have the other one be goal weight. And I think... Hey, Hypno. Welcome. So yeah, if you didn't catch any previous videos, I'm currently really quick, or hopefully really quick in the next few days, since I got a multi-day weekend, making an app just to make it easier to keep track of what workout routines I'm doing and what my goals are and that sort of thing. Obviously, it doesn't look like much right now, but we're just sort of working on pushing forward. Let's see here. Some frames been dropped. Check your health, internet connection, blah, blah, blah. Ah, that's probably what it was. I noticed I was losing some frames there. All good, because yeah, all mine are closed and I have Backblaze off. Well, it's a good thing I asked you to look then. So let's see here. Okay, so we got reps, tempo, weight, goal weight, which you should be able to see. I believe I have that window visible. Yes, okay, cool. I have to remember where I've put things. Something I learned from the fellow that's been helping me with my workout routine is that for tempo, you have 3 steps. And these are called the eccentric, isometric, and concentric steps. And I've listed them here. I actually made a note that concentric is the muscle actively shortening, the eccentric is the muscle actively lengthening, and then the isometric is when you're holding it at the same position. So like if you're doing a plank, that's an isometric exercise. Because I was trying to ask him what to name the different segments of the workout, because for tempo you have three pieces, and if you look down here you'll notice initially I just had it say value, so like value 1, value 2, value 3, and I didn't like that naming convention because it means nothing to me. So we fixed that, and so now you've learned something today, potentially. So we've got our steps. Something I want to do really quick is we're going to hook up saving and loading. It's actually a lot simpler than you may think. Unless you think it's really simple, then you're pretty much on the money. So we got our fitness controller, which handles the various sets and has an event for adding a warm-up. Later it'll have one for adding exercises and cool-downs and all that sort of stuff. We showed before that it works, but we do not currently actually save. So we will make a saving and loading controller, and we will call this the I/O controller, because that's actually what it is. As for the nitty-gritty of what that stands for, I don't quite recall. I just remember IO's power on, off, that sort of thing. You'll actually notice it, not on my computer, but on most computers and devices, you've got the IO shape where the power button is. Let's see. So we will create our IO controller class, which we've got a few controllers down here that need to move. And so we will drop them into there. Cool. Okay. Now we'll open up the IO controller someday. Almost. There we go. Now, generally speaking, when you're saving, there's a few different ways you can do it. I tend to like to sort of bundle everything into a rather large JSON, which is just a fancy string. If you've never seen one before, I consider them rather pretty compared to something like a comma-separated value list, data structured dealy. Let's see, namespace, rico.io. These days, I guess I should be switching into OVCAD, but whatever, we'll get there. Rico's shorter. And we can always act like it's an acronym for something. It's not. Okay, so we have our IO controller, which is currently a monobehavior. Does it need to be a monobehavior? No, it does not. So we can make it a scriptable object, which means that we'll go data.io. And we're going to want to, whoops, class is right, sorry. We are going to want to grab our creation, what do you call these? I forget. Property. I believe that's right. And then we go IO controller is the name of the class. Ooh, I did not spell it right at all. Let's just copy and paste. I'm too lazy to fix it, even though it was like one letter. Got data /IO. And then in here, so we will create this in a bit, and the actual scriptable object itself very likely will not do much of anything. It'll be more of a storage and processing container. Real quick, we'll do our two functions that it's going to be using, which, whoops, public void save and public void load. In fact, we probably want these things to be static. So we will then go to what was a good static object that's in our resources? Event controller. Let's go into that. So we're going to grab this static reference section. We're going to bring it over here. That's nice code, generally is code that you can copy and paste to another part of your class or another part of your project, and it still works. I usually suggest that you've made it loose enough that it's your friend. Jeez. Let's see here. Okay, and that's done. So now we've got our static reference, and the reason for that is so we can do public static void on these two. That way, anywhere in the project, I can just write, for example, we'll save real quick, and over here, I'm just picking something random. You could do IO controller load, and this would load. Now, obviously, you can tell that this isn't providing you any data back. We may have it start sending the information back when it loads, or when it loads, it'll fill a static reference, data reference that then anything can read from. We'll figure it out as we go along. The easiest way to save data is to use player pref, I believe is what it's called. Yeah. So you've got save, which will let you save a string, or sorry, set string. Yeah. So we can set a string. There is a limit to the size of the string. It's a handful of megabytes. Let me check the limit so that we don't get into doo-doo. But the easiest way to get around that limit is just to have a separate string for every piece of data. So you have one for your exercises, one for your warm-ups, one for your cooldowns. So let's see, limit. Max size for getString and setString. What does it say? 1 megabyte, looks like. Which is fine, again, because we actually don't even need to do that. We could just save locally to the folder itself. Now, the limitation there is that it wouldn't work on phones. So for phones, you would want to use the player prefs outright, which is where this is mostly going to be used because I need it in the gym. I don't know if there is no limit on mobile devices except for device memory itself. Awesome. So I don't care. Okay. If I fill up my phone, that is A-okay with me. Yeah, that'd be a lot of data since it's going to be in a string. Okay, so we've got our save and our load functions that do absolutely nothing right now. So we need to make that not the case. There's a few things to remember. If we're going to use JSON that's built into Unity, it does not support dictionaries, which means we probably want to use JSON-FX, which I don't know if that is included. It's not. So JSON-FX is something that a lot of people use, largely because Unity's download, or Unity's JSON that's built in, doesn't support anything that can't be serialized in Unity. So if there's something you've ever used, like a getter or setter, dictionaries, nested arrays, all these things, Unity's JSON serializer, because it's hooked up into their serialization system itself, just does not support any of those things. If you can't see it in the editor, you cannot turn it into a JSON with Unity's built-in JSON system. So what I'm grabbing is something called JSON-FX, which hopefully the one I'm about to grab is just the DLL and not something I need to compile, because I'm not going to do that. Source. I mean, if it's not there, it's not the end of the world, because is that it? Is that a plugin? You're killing me, Smalls. Let's see. Okay, they have a build bat file. Let's give it a shot. It'll either work or explode. And you know, those are the kind of odds I like. Build.bat. I saw the word failed. That looks good. The thing about using bat files, if you don't use them through a command window that you've already opened, is they close immediately when they're done, either whether they fail or not. Okay, so distributed, blah, blah, blah. Ah, it says there's an actual Unity package. I did not see that. Let's go look. Downloads. Unity package. Packages. I'm getting suspect of your claims. Ah, there it is. All right. Forgiveness has been delivered. And it's about 1 million files long, but that's fine. And we got some complaints over here about the I/O controller that we will figure out in a moment. Public class, scriptable object, exercise set, exercise, generic game event. So this looks fine. Come over here, and we will compare them, and nothing looks wrong. Oh. That was actually probably a little bit loud. I see what's wrong here. It was complaining that I had attached it to an in-scene object when I shouldn't have, because it's no longer a mono behavior. That is fine. Okay, so JSON-FX is now in the project, I believe under packages. No? Plugins. Yeah, there it is. All right, so if we go back into our folder here, JSON-FX.json.writer, I believe, and then serialize, or sorry, JSON-writer.serialize. It's always something I gotta remember. JSON serializer, right? JSON formatter. It's 1 million steps long. JSON reader, looks right. Serialization, JSON. Ah, here we are. Yeah, I could have sworn it was just JSON writer dot. So I will double check. And then we'll move ahead because we don't actually need it immediately. Oh, readme file. What kind of madness is this? Feels so dirty. Serializing and deserializing with JSON. And see, the thing that you can do sometimes if you don't remember, JSON reader, JSON writer, these are not what I'm looking for. These are not the droids. Yeah, and we'll find it in a bit. Okay. But the general gist of it is we're going to do player prefs dot set string, and that string is going to be called save, and the value is going to be our save data. So our save data is going to go in this area right here. And then our load is going to be player preferences dot get string, and that string is going to be save, which so then we have a string save data equals this. And then, oh, sorry. And then what we'll do is we're going to have JSON effects dot JSON dot. I thought reader, but now I'm getting a little bit skeptical. JSON tokenizer. Do not know what that is. Reader, and we'll just say string. Just for a moment here. No. All right, yeah. Well, we'll have to find it. So basically, what if we were using the JSON utility that's built into Unity, which we may end up doing if FX has changed so much that I can't use it, is you would do save data here, and you can either do the of type, like let's say string, or sorry, of type. Why are you fighting me? Or type of. That's why it was fighting me. Just as an example. So you'd have your like string, not a string in this case, actually should be data structure. But at any rate, and then I said as string. Yeah, so you'd be converting it to whatever the class is. So in this case, we'll have like some data class and then assigning it to it. That's literally all saving and loading is. So we've got our public class save data, or we'll just say data because we already know it's save data. And what is included in that? We have three things currently. We have our list of exercises, our list of warm-ups, and our list of cooldowns, not in that order. So we need to do, what is a warm-up set? That is a set of transitions. So we've got public set transition, and that's warm up, public set transition cooldown, public set exercise, exercise, warm-ups, exercises, cooldowns. And what we're going to do is when we hit save, we're going to say that each of these is equal to well, when we hit save, we can actually just read the actual data structures themselves. So we can even assign them inside of this. So we're going to do that. Let's see, what's the best way? I mean, I guess technically that means that we don't need to have these in the fitness controller. So we're going to grab this real quick. We're going to go over to the IO controller. We're going to plop these in here. Get rid of that data namespace because it's already included in the project. Delete this for now because we actually don't need it. Hit save. Come over to our check. See how this is looking fine. Other than those occasional drop frames. I'll figure that out later. Not very much going on in terms of movement, so I don't think, other than perhaps a little bit of audio loss, there's anything really major being lost here. Task manager, performance, summary view. Just seeing if. Oh, I know who I'm getting trolled by. That's unexpected. Nexon's client is using 2 megabytes per second, up and down.
What?
Yeah.
I think mine's closed.
That's interesting.
I'll close mine just in case it.
Yeah, it's eating up like all my data. Nexon! Naughty, naughty.
Okay.
What are you even doing? Alright, so that's... And there we go. Now my stuff's nice and low again. Very strange. Unexpected. Anyways, back on topic. So we'll go into the Unity section. Fitness controller is got them already, but we don't need it there. We'll go into resources, controllers. Oh. Controller. And then that. Whoops. That should be what I need. Okay. So we've got our I/O controller, and then we're going to drop in the exercise set, the warm-up set, and the cooldown set. And then we're actually going to go in and remove those from the fitness controller itself, which will momentarily cause an issue. But that is okay, because we're going to come over to the I/O controller, and we're going to add in a function for adding and removing the various things. Public, for now we'll just do adding because we don't actually have a removing feature. Public void add warm-up. It's actually public static void. Public static void add exercise. Public static. Let's just grab those from the fitness controller, man. Save myself some trouble. And then static on all of these, which will momentarily cause an error because we are no longer associated with this scriptable object, which is why you then throw I/O on the front. And that takes care of that. And this is done here. data.io.io controller dot add warmup. Add cooldown. Whoops. Add cooldown. Add exercise. And we're actually going to be more precise over here. Currently, you can just send a... Whoops. Hit F12. Currently, you're just sending a object through, but I actually want it to be more precise than that. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab exactly what it is. And then we don't even need this anymore. Because it's already been cast in the previous function. And the reason those functions exist is I don't believe you can attach... you can't attach the event listeners that I use over here. So, gotta do this. Okay, so we've got our 3 functions, which will add to the I/O controller, which is here. And then we'll want to do a debug message, I believe, because I don't think we have one, do we? We do not. Debug.log and IO. Warm up added. And we've got value.name. Yeah. String.format. value.name. And that's good. And then we come down here and we say cooldown added. And here, exercise added. Technically, this isn't always true. You could fail to add and this would still go off, but that already throws an error, and so I can track that still, which is totally fine. But the reason for these messages is just so that we know that these functions are actually triggering without breakpoints, which is nice. And then we'll just down here, we've got saved, and this is actually going to be a JSON, so say string JSON equals, let me back that out and put that on its own line, JSON. And this will, the benefit of this is it'll debug out the entire save structure each time it's done, which we won't do forever, but while we're testing, that'll be helpful. Similarly, we've got save data down here, and so we're going to say this is loaded. Save data. Now, what we need to do is a couple things. The first is once the save data is loaded, we need to trigger a loaded event. That way, everything that needs to be filled in with data can then fill in with data. Pretty simple concept, I think. In fact, we could, if we make a strict data structure and then send that out with the update. So we say, hey, we've loaded and here's all the data. Use what you need. Mildly wasteful, but this isn't like a top-down shooter. So let's do that. Private data.generic game event. Data loaded. So now we need to create that event, and we also need to public static void data loaded. Oh, I see what's going on here. Oh no, we're still good. Okay. Object data events dot data loaded dot raise data. Data is loaded. This event fires as you would expect. Then we'll come over to the actual project. Oh yeah, I should scroll down a bit. That's what it looks like. Okay. So now we'll come over here and go down to event controller. Well, first we need to create the event. Data loaded. Event is created, and then we can come back over to the IO controller down here and say events.event controller data loaded. And the data that we'd be sending out is gonna be, currently it's a string, but once I create the actual save class itself, then it'll be one of those. Alternatively, I could send an event for each piece that is loaded in. So like after warm-ups are finished loading, then tell the warm-up objects that, you know, we'll figure it out. Yeah. So I guess the best avenue is actually to already make this its own class. So public class data, which should be giving you deja vu at this point, but system.serializable so that it shows up in the inspector. Then we've got private data. Serialize it again so that it shows up in the inspector. And We move these into there, which will momentarily break a few things, but only for a moment. And you'll notice, oh, right, yeah, those got to be public now. So then down here, what we can say is JSON equals data. Well, we'll use the JSON utility that's built into Unity real quick, just because I don't want to have to deal with the other one for now. Lowercase data, please. Oh, io.data. And that creates our string. So then here we say JSON. And then it debugs out, and we can actually create, I think, we can create a button save. Might not be able to because it's a static function, but if we can't, we can just make a local function that triggers the static function, if it doesn't let us. So it doesn't look, oh, there they are. So we got our 3 buddies that we got to repopulate, sadly, but it only takes a moment. Warm up, cool down, exercise. Oh, there's no that order. Oops. And that should reorganize them. And I'm going to actually also hide label, because we don't actually need the label of the class itself. That's useless. We just want the data structures that we're interacting with. And then we can hit save, for instance. And now when we look down here, we notice the issue. So we've got our warm-up set, which is just showing us the instance ID of the object. So that suggests to me that what we actually need is the contents, which, did I fix that yet? Did I make it so sets automatically? I did not. Okay, so how best to get this? Basically, what's happening is it saved a string of, oh, let me move this so you can actually see it. It saved a string of the instance IDs for these actual scriptable objects rather than creating a JSON of the contents within. Pretty sure. Let's go down here and we'll add something, and that's fine. That's all we need. So we're going to add that, and we're going to hit save again, and you'll notice nothing changed. So yeah, that's the problem we have right now. So what we need to do is, under save, is we need to create a do you get the contents most easily? Technically, you would get them by creating something akin to, let me find an example for you. Events, resources, scriptable objects. Do I not have any of my scriptable object? I don't. Let me go into one of my other projects, because that's the advantage of working on lots of stuff, is that you can just go, you don't have to memorize what you did before, you can just go look, which is lovely. So I am currently going into a different project and looking to see what the exact line I did for making scriptable objects what implicitly work like whatever they are a wrapper for, which will make more sense in a second once I find it. Plugins, assets, libraries, not where I wanted to be actually. Projects where I wanted to be. Tools, scriptable objects, no. Tools, data, there we are. So for instance, this double, you'll see it implicitly references a double. So we come over to, say, the warm-up set, and we implicitly will say that it is a set transition, and see if this works. We don't actually know if it will. might not. User-defined conversion must convert to or from the enclosing type. So I guess technically, let's see here. Lowercase double to uppercase double, double, double. Okay, so actually, let's grab this again and compare it, because I've never actually done this with lists or sets or anything like that before. So the two things we have are the thing that it inherently is, or what it's trying to be, which is a set is, when we look at contents, contents is a list of T. So we have a list of transition, and we are giving it a set transition, and that's content. Did that work? List transition, return. And obviously, sometimes you can have it tell you what you're doing incorrect, but in this case, it does not want to be my friend. So, I agree. So we'll look here, and we have our content T. What am I forgetting? I'll probably end up coming back to this just because it's not a huge deal right now. I also don't like leaving strings. Must convert to or from the enclosing type. The enclosing type is set transition, which is here. Because this is the class, this is the... I wonder. I assume I can't do that here either. Yeah, I'll figure it out later. But basically, having it implicitly register as a list of something, so that so that I don't need to deal with it. Basically, well, that's fine. So what we can do here is for saving. Okay, whoops, messing with the old microphone. What we can do here for saving, blah, blah, blah. Where are we? IO controller. Because I would like it to be a one-liner, but it looks like it won't be able to be. I guess the easiest... I'm going to check if there's an option on the internets. Bing, bing. It's all good. Just keeping me in, oh, what was that line? Like, keeping you aware of your... Okay. It's always interesting trying to figure out what the keywords would be for what you're looking for. To or from enclosed type generic list. Oh, I thought I did that. Let's go back and look at it. So what they're saying on the old interwebs is that, let's flip these around actually so that we can match the example perfectly, is that this and this should match this, and then this and this set transition list t. Oops. Aha! Well then. I thought I was in for a bamboozle, but indeed I am not. Okay. So this needs to be this. This needs to be that. Whoop! Cannot be used because you cannot access such a thing. Public void replace t list. Oh, sorry. List t content equals list. Perfect. Do that instead, and then that. And so now we have a replace function. Then we go back over to our warm-up set and we say replace, and we'll replace with this reference here. And there we go. Okay. So now, do I need a string out as well? Let's find out. Public override toString return question marks. Now we wait for it to compile and hope when we hit the save button everything doesn't go to doo-doo, because that would be no gusta. We'll save first because you never know if you're about to accidentally cause an infinite loop. Still not exactly what I want. Just to check, we're going to do So we still have content. Warm-up set. Warm-up set's the one we were editing. Didn't make question marks, and we have the implicit operator, which means we should have two different. We should have a lowercase add as well, I believe. No, it's still uppercase. And if we have 12 that takes us here. Suppose what you could do is you could, as I mentioned before, save each thing as an individual piece. So in that case, what you would do is dot warmup set dot content, just an example. And this should give us a detailed structure in the first section here. Or actually maybe the whole thing. Yeah, and do we not have a warm-up available? We do have one. So the fact that it came up empty is not good. Let's see why. Definitely should show up. And content is list T. It's entirely possible that, again, this is a situation where it's because we're using JSON utility. Data writer. Yeah, what do they do to this thing? It used to be, the one I have at work is so much more simple. No gusta at all. Because this is the most recent version of it. Okay, so we've got console write line, writer, new JSON writer. Ah, there, writer equals new JSON writer. Writer dot write. Oh, it's all coming together. It's a little bit clunky compared to what I'm used to, but whatever works. Almost baby steps. Okay, so we've got a list of content. Should be saving right here. Doot, doot, doot. And it is not. A list of all things should be very easy to save. Let's make a few more. Hit that there button again. This is one of those things where when you realize what's causing... Ah, okay, so we see here that there is 5 chunks and the data themselves are empty. So we go look at warm-up set, and that's a transition, so we'll look at transition. So for some reason, I believe it's because they're internal. So they're not serializing right. So we'll do that as much as it pains me and try it out real quick. You can usually count on that sort of thing being what's biting you in the butt. Hey, there we are. Okay, cool. So I guess a to-do for me sometime is to make getter setters for these deals and hide them a bit, just because I like it. But yeah, so as you can see, now we have strings that are saved. So now we need to actually load might already work. Might not. In fact, I was picking on JSON, Unity's JSON, and it's entirely possible just now that it would have worked had those had the right. Yes. That's what we'll go with. Brain's not all here. But basically, it might not have been the fault of Unity. So we got get string, save, blah. So if we hit load, you see here? So we've got, it's got the whole thing that it loaded from memory, or well, technically from your hard drive in the registry. And here's the event, sending it out to anything that's listening, of which there's nothing currently. But now we have a working saving and loading system, which is good. The only problem right now is that the stuff we're saving and loading is obviously minimal, because it's just the contents from the warm-up set. So the problem we have is we want to get the contents from warm-up set, exercise set, and cooldown set. Similarly, when we load it back in, we want to be able to assign it to the data structure itself so that over time we can edit these things. Now, I thought that by implicitly grabbing these as lists so that when you look at them, they will return the contents. But it looks like that is not the case. And I find that incredibly unfortunate, but not altogether surprising. And that's probably going to end up being one of those things where I'm going to need to research it a bit, find what I'm not thinking of, and then go from there. And I think that's a pretty good place to stop for now. And then when we come back, let's see, what are we doing when we come back? Well, once saving and loading is done, then it's a matter of putting in the data pieces that we need that aren't yet there. And then once all the events work for that, I think it's mostly just the GUI. Because at that point, you're pretty much done outside of nice to haves. Yeah. Not too bad. So, yeah, see you next time. Hopefully, I don't think I was folding either. I'll see if I can figure out what happened for frame rate dips, because it actually ended up being about 1/4 of my frames. Yeah. Yeah, quite a lot. Is what it is.